Inter Miami have won the MLS Cup and have taken action in the transfer market to try to retain that title for next season. To that end, they have signed one of the best shot stoppers in the league in Dayne St. But do they really need him? How much of an improvement is he actually on Rocco Rios Novo? And does he even suit their playing style? Rocco Rios Novo really established himself towards the end of last season in the playoffs, and we only have a small sample size of about 9 games or 790 minutes, but his stats in that time are really encouraging. Especially the metric that we usually use to evaluate goalkeepers, post-shot expected goals minus goals against, is very high compared to other keepers in the league. Post-shot expected goals is just a measure of how good a shot is. So expected goals, you have how likely someone is to score from a certain position on the field. Post-shot expected goals is after that shot is taken, how good of a shot is it? If it's in the top right corner, it'll have a higher post-shot expected goals rather than a shot right down the middle. And this isn't a perfect metric, but it's the best one we have for rating how good a shot is and how likely a keeper might be to save it. So having a good post-shot expected goals minus goals against shows that Rocco Rios Novo is saving more goals than he's expected to allow in. And you might be thinking, if he's so good, why is his save percentage so low? And for that, we can look at another stat that will make me long-winded saying it and that I have to actually read. Post-shot expected goals per shot on target. Having a high number in this statistic means that Rocco Rios Novo is typically facing shots that are harder to stop, which would explain his low save percentage. If the majority of shots taken on him are good shots and hard to save, he'll save less of them than a keeper who's getting a lot of easy shots. So let's sum up what these stats are telling us. Rios Novo saves more goals than he would be expected to, but the shots he's facing are regularly higher quality and harder to stop. We can also see he's not incredibly dominant in the air with very little crosses claimed. Plus he plays short with a lot of passes, very high volume, which is less of a state of his ability and more just a statement of how Miami play. And if we think about how Miami plays and how they concede chances, these statistics are less surprising. The way they played, especially in the playoffs, was very open, relying on chaotic moments for individual brilliance to shine. This means that when the opponent did get the ball, they could attack right down the middle, and when Miami conceded chances, they were usually very good ones, where players had space to pick out their shot in favorable positions. Now, I don't think Rios Novo's stats are by any means imperious. He obviously has room to improve, but he is only 23, and his great performance in the playoffs kind of have me expecting that he would be the starter next year. So why did Miami sign Dayne St? On a base level, it's not shocking that the MLS Cup winners will go out and sign the MLS Goalkeeper of the Year. It's a great signing, great value, he's a great character, but there are some questions that can be raised about the signing. Goalkeepers, like outfield players, aren't simply plug and play. The environment that Dayne St. thrived in Minnesota is a very different one to what he'll be experiencing in Miami, and we can see this in his goalkeeping numbers. His shot-stopping numbers are great, and he's a big moment keeper for sure with a big moment mentality, especially with penalties. But something interesting to note that unlike Rios Novo, St. Clair's post-shot expected goals per shot on target is much lower. So the shots he's facing are of a much lesser quality. Probably as a result of Minnesota's play style, getting players behind the ball, forcing shots from range, or of a lower quality under a lot more pressure. He also rarely takes defensive actions outside of the box and always prefers to launch the ball rather than playing it short, again, function of Minnesota's playing style. But under Adrian Heath, the previous manager, he played more of a sweeper-keeper role and his numbers were way worse. This could have been a result of him just improving as he ages, but it's undeniable that Eric Ramsey's tactics have brought the best out of him. Looking at the numbers of him playing in a different system in 2023, they are much worse than how he's playing now. Some of that would simply be growing as a keeper and in confidence, but it would be silly to disregard that the times that he's been playing well have been under Ramsey's defensive system. And it is worth mentioning that he has played under a different system for Jesse Marsch in Canada, but it's only been for a couple games that we don't have data on, and international games are such a different beast tactically. It's kind of hard to use that as any statement of whether that'll translate to the club level. overall. And again, it's only been a few games, so not really a statistically significant amount to draw any conclusions on. If we look at St. Clair's distribution numbers, we can see that his success in that department was much more quantity over quality. Minnesota just sent a lot of balls forward, he launched everything, and it worked out a lot of the time, but more quantity rather than quality. And if we compared St. Clair's distribution numbers to Rios Novo's, we can see it's the complete opposite. Rios Novo has low number of balls launched, but a high degree of completion. Again, this could be system. The types of passes that he launches are just when players are open, rather than St. Clair launching them just into a crowd. But it's a completely different system, different environment, different situations. So it's hard to tell whether St. Clair is definitely going to translate to that system because he hasn't really done it before. Watching Minnesota, you saw a lot of balls from St. Clair go out of bounds, miss their target, and it didn't really matter because they were playing so defensive, but that won't be the case at Miami. Now, I don't want it to seem that I think St. Clair is absolutely going to fail at Miami. He's a great shot stopper, incredible keeper, and a great character. Overall, a fantastic signing for Miami. I just don't think it's the guaranteed home run that everyone thinks it is because of the different systems that he's leaving and coming to. Of course, he's a great keeper, and the justification seems to be that because he's a great keeper, he'll figure out the new system at Miami. I just want to point out that if he does end up failing, it won't be because he's a bad keeper, it'll be because his skill set isn't quite suited to what Miami want. And that's fine. But I also won't be too surprised to see Rios Novo starting a few games over Dayne St because he's better suited to the system. But we'll have to wait and see.